I was helping my biological dad renovate the office in his creepy old farmhouse late one night. The house itself gave me the chills. It was dilapidated with creaky wooden floors and dim lighting that cast eerie shadows across the walls. But my dad had done a lot of work to fix it up over the years since he bought it. I was on my knees on the rough hardwood floor, pounding away at some loose nails with my hammer. The rhythmic thunking was the only sound aside from the occasional hoot of an owl outside. Dad excused himself to use the bathroom down the hall. As I reached down to pick up my hammer again, I felt an overwhelming presence, like someone was watching me. A chill went down my spine. I looked up expecting to see my dad returned, but there was no one there. Trying to shake it off as my imagination, I bent down to grab the hammer from where I had set it on the floor just seconds ago. But it was gone, inexplicably several feet away, well out of my reach. I felt my heart start to race as confusion and fear set in. There's no way I could have missed seeing it there or knocked it that far somehow. I hadn't moved an inch. Just then, Dad came back into the room. "Hey, you'll never believe what just happened," I started, my voice shaky. I recounted feeling the strange presence and then the hammer being displaced. To my surprise, instead of dismissing it, he just laughed. The little girl must be playing with you." "The little girl?" I asked, feeling more unsettled by the second. Dad smiled and nodded. "Yeah, every once in a while I hear a child's laughter or see her wandering around upstairs out of the corner of my eye, always wearing the same old overalls. Guess she's gotten a taste for moving things around too." As much as I tried to rationalize it, I had no logical explanation for what happened with the hammer. I've never believed in ghosts or the paranormal, but there was no denying that a mysterious, unseen force had moved that hammer across the floor. Maybe my dad's farmhouse really was haunted by the spirit of a young girl. A few nights later, I was back helping Dad with some electrical work upstairs. We had just taken a break and I was alone in one of the old bedrooms, checking some wiring behind a cracked mirror on the wall. As I jimmied the mirror loose, something in the dusty glass caught my eye. A faint shape emerged, slowly taking form. I squinted to make it out, my heart pounding. That's when I saw her, a tiny girl of no more than 6 or 7 years old with blonde pigtails wearing classic blue overalls. She wasn't transparent like a ghost, but looked totally solid, just out of place. She started toddling right towards me, not even seeming to notice I was there. I must have gasped or made a sound because she stopped and cocked her head to look at me quizzically. In that moment, our eyes met and a shiver went through my whole body. Then, just as quickly as she appeared, she faded into the mirror again, leaving me alone and shaken. I couldn't wait for Dad to get back so I could tell him I saw the little girl myself this time. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always felt a connection to the past. My parents joked that I was born an old soul. Maybe that's why that strange encounter at the church graveyard affected me so deeply. I grew up on a quiet street in the historic district of our town. The houses were centuries old, surrounded by mature trees and lush gardens. I loved exploring the old buildings, imaging the lives of all the people who had walked those streets before me over the decades and centuries. My favorite place was the ancient stone church at the end of our road. I spent countless hours sitting in the courtyard, running my hands along the moss-covered masonry and wondering about all the rituals, celebrations, and solemn moments those walls had witnessed. The graveyard out front drew me in with its leaning, weathered headstones, some so aged the carved names and dates were no longer legible. It was on one of those bright, crisp autumn days when I was 15 years old. As always, I was taking the unhurried route home from school, savoring those moments of quiet between the school bell and arriving at home. Making my way past the church gates, something automatically drew my gaze into the graveyard. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. A cowboy straight out of the Wild West, standing solemnly in front of one of the old graves. But as I got closer, the details became clearer. He was dressed entirely in white, a pristine white cowboy hat, a long-sleeved white cotton shirt, a white vest, white trousers tucked into white leather boots. Not a speck of dirt marred his outfit. The bright afternoon sun seemed to make the white fabrics almost glow. I couldn't take my eyes off this mysterious figure as I slowly walked past the gates. He was a man probably in his 30s or 40s, with a face that could have belonged to any average guy you'd pass on the street. Medium build, short brown hair, a few days of stubble shadowing his jaw. Except for that surreal, all-white cowboy getup. I must have stared for a solid minute, trying to make sense of what I was witnessing. He stood stock still, eyes downcast in what seemed to be quiet contemplation of the grave before him. I blinked hard, and suddenly he was gone, vanished into thin air as if he'd been a mirage. My heart pounded as I spun around, frantically scanning the graveyard, but there was no sign of the white-clad cowboy anywhere. I felt a shiver run down my spine. This wasn't the American West. We were in a typical English town. What on earth had I just seen? To this day, I can't explain that haunting apparition, but the image of that lonesome white cowboy is burned into my memory forever. In the weeks and months after, I started researching the history of that church and graveyard. I learned it was built in the 1600s, with some graves dating back centuries before that. There were legends of the ground being an ancient pagan sacred site even before the church existed. With a history spanning over a millennium, it's no surprise there was said to be supernatural energy and residual haunts in that sacred space. Perhaps I had witnessed one of those unexplained paranormal phenomena that day, a bizarre glimpse into another time and place. No matter what the truth was, I'll never forget the white-clad cowboy specter standing vigil among those ancient headstones on that autumn afternoon. I've always been a bit of a loner, keeping to myself and feeling most comfortable flying under the radar. Maybe that's why the incident with my doppelganger shook me to my core. I'm a 28-year-old graphic designer. Despite working in a creative field, I tend to dress fairly minimalist and casual. Jeans, solid-color tees, and minimal jewelry. My dark shoulder-length hair and average height and build allow me to blend into a crowd pretty easily. Not that I mind. I actually prefer a low-key life without much fuss or attention. It was just a normal Tuesday when my friend Jess, who knows my introvert ways all too well, sent me a picture that stopped me in my tracks. At first glance, I thought it was a photo of me crossing a street downtown during my lunch break, but that couldn't be right. Jess and I had just gotten off the phone and she knew I was working from my apartment that afternoon. I scrutinized the image, feeling unsettled. The hair color and style were an exact match to mine. The body type, height, proportions, they were eerily familiar, like looking in a mirror. Even the outfit and purse looked just like items I owned. My friend confirmed what I didn't want to believe. From the back view in the photo, it appeared this stranger's face was also identical to mine. A doppelganger walking the streets of my city. I shuddered at the thought. Staring at the picture, I felt like I was looking at a shadow version of myself. Who was this person? Did they realize how similar we looked? A million other questions raced through my mind. From that day on, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that somewhere out there, my double was going about their life, unaware of my existence. Or maybe they knew. And that thought made my skin crawl. Whenever I'm out in public now, I find myself scanning faces in the crowd, haunted by that single photo and the possibility of coming face to face with my eerie doppelganger. But in the years since, our paths never crossed. My double has remained an urban legend to me, occasionally surfacing in the back of my mind whenever I see someone who reminds me of that chilling photograph. Jess never saw the doppelganger again after that one encounter. She's shown the picture to others, but no one has been able to identify the person. My double remains an eerie and unsolved mystery that still makes my chest tighten whenever I think about it. A strange encounter that I'll always make me wonder, is there really someone out there who's my exact mirror image, blissfully unaware of my existence? It makes me ponder if doppelganger sightings are more common than we think. Do other people have experiences like this, catching a glimpse of their double in a crowd or public place? Or was my case a truly rare and unnerving phenomenon? Part of me hopes it's the latter, as I wouldn't wish that spine-tingling feeling of seeing your own face on a stranger upon anyone else. But the other part of me hopes there are others who can relate, who have felt that shock of the unexplainable. Either way, I'm eternally grateful my encounter was just a fleeting moment, unlike the tales of those who have actually met their doppelgangers face to face. My mom loves to tell this story about something that allegedly happened when I was just a 1-year-old baby. Of course, I have absolutely no memory of the event myself, but she swears it's the gospel truth. I come from a very tight-knit family. My parents were high school sweethearts who got married right after graduation. A few years later, I came along, their first child and the apple of everyone's eye, especially my grandparents. My mom's parents lived just a couple miles away, so we were always going over there for family dinners or holidays. Grandpa and I were particularly close. He would bounce me on his knee, let me wear his baseball caps, and sneak me cookies before dinner. I adored my silly, playful grandpa. So when he passed away from cancer when I was just a baby, it hit our family extraordinarily hard. My parents were devastated to lose a father so young, and I was too little to even comprehend that I'd never get to make more memories with my best pal. It was only a few months after he was gone when the bizarre experience happened that my mom tells about. I was taking an afternoon nap in my crib like the 1-year-old I was. My mom came into the nursery to check on me, probably to change my diaper, all those mundane baby things mothers do. But she found me standing up in my crib instead of sleeping peacefully. Even weirder, my gaze was fixated on a chair, a dining room chair that definitely did not belong in the nursery. No one had brought it in there, and I just kept repeating the word birthday over and over again. My poor mom was absolutely freaked out. She had no idea how that random chair got into my room, nor why I was so transfixed by it while babbling about a birthday. It made no sense at all. Later that very day, she checked the calendar and received a shock. It was my grandfather's birthday, the same grandfather who had passed away just a few months prior. To this day, my mom insists before God that this bizarre experience absolutely happened. That I, as a 1-year-old infant, somehow knew it was my late grandfather's birthday and was trying to draw attention to it with the chair and my repeated stating of birthday. She's confused by what happened, but believes I must have sensed my grandfather's presence that day. Nothing like that ever happened again after the strange incident. I have to admit, as plausible as my mom tried to make it sound, I'm still pretty skeptical about the whole thing. But she stands by the story happening exactly as she described it, even though I don't have any actual memory of the event myself.